they crowd, and now it's all I think about.
Well,
where are you at?
Welcome to our Sunday Night Live, everybody. Thanks for being
we're
here.
on fire. She's hot. Where you at, everybody? She's so hot, she'll melt all the food in the frozen section.
That was a really fun movie.
That was a great
Classic. Movie. Steve Martin.
I was in the house, Portland, Oregon, Michigan, Ireland, top of the morning, Connecticut, Idaho, Santa Fe. Wow.
While you're doing that, I want to just give a shout out to our mods. We have an extraordinary crew of amazing women who keep our chat warm, welcoming, and classy. And we always want to thank Sophia, Maui Girl, Mimi J2, Teresa M, Laura Waldy,
Nova Scotia,
and Holly.
We thank you, ladies. We are always grateful. Always grateful. And to our Patreon members and to our subscribers and to our members here on this channel, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are sincerely grateful for everything that you have done for us, and hopefully we will return it back to you. Hey, we got also another shout out, don't we?
We do. We want to give a shout out to Betty and her sweet husband, Andy, who we got to meet this weekend
at In-N-Out Burger.
And we want to thank them for being great supporters of our channel.
You guys are awesome. Yeah. Hey, there's also something else going on with our channel, isn't there?
There is. We have a little bit of news. So you can now take the interview room anywhere. I guess you probably always could. But we are now on Spotify. The interview room is on Spotify. So,
and Apple.
And
every place you find your
you get your podcast. Right. So we would just ask after this program, sometime this week at your convenience, if you could head over to Spotify. It's free, doesn't cost anything, takes just a couple of seconds to sign up, and it will genuinely help us grow our audience over there. And we've got our full library to date over on Spotify.
It's up to date for just every video we've ever done on YouTube is over there, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yep. And in both audio and video form, we wanted to try both formats to see what you guys like most. So when you get over there, let us know what you like most, and also kind of move so they can see Meatloaf down here. Can you guys?
Buddy, I can see his like a
you can
leg.
Just see his little leg, his little rabbit leg. You got to move just a little bit more. There he is.
That's like a quarter of his body. You can
the corner of the Meatloaf back there.
He'll cruise around. Hopefully you'll get to see him.
He's like a little bag of cement rolling around the backyard here. So, hey, who do we have on the program tonight, hon?
We are super excited to have retired Homicide Sergeant John Lamb report for duty here on the interview room.
Johnny.
Great to see you, John.
It's wonderful to be here. I'm always an honor, and I'm glad to feel actually well enough to be doing this after breathing recycled air on 2 transcontinental flights in 4 weeks. Yeah. Well,
where did you go, John?
I went to San Diego twice, and I discovered that a gentleman of my age does not bounce back from these excursions as quickly as they might, and ended up coming down with sinusitis and some sort of viral scourge.
They call that viral Californianus.
Do they?
Yes, it's something. It's in the air sometime.
My last trip there for a while. So, but I'm feeling well enough to join, your viewers, your mods, and you guys. So it's a delight to be here.
We're glad you're feeling better and can join us.
And we want to thank you for.
We have our autographed copy of Bring Out Your Dead.
You got to see
John's latest book
in
his memoir series. And it's available over at Amazon, and we have a link in the description below to go get his book.
And this is the third book in your series, right, Johnny?
It's the third book in the series. It's my 10th total book. And it came out in July. And I want to thank everybody from TIR who went out and bought it. And I hope you enjoy it. And, uh, the only other thing I can say is that um, for anyone who's interested in how homicides were worked before all of the digital DNA evidence was available, this book gives you some insight as to how we solved homicides in 1984. The only other news I have is later this week I'm driving to Franklin, Tennessee for a writers' conference. Beach Blanket Bedlam, the preceding volume, is up for an award for best nonfiction. So
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Well deserved.
Thank you. And since I'm driving, I'm not going to be breathing recycled air. And
Unless
I like
you brought it back. You know that little thing that looks like a U
Yeah.
and ends the arrow? That's the recycled air in your cabin. So
yeah,
hit
well,
that puppy
don't
and you'll
do that.
keep yourself
I
sick all the way.
feel like I'm,
Sounds great.
if I'm harming the environment by doing that, then at least I'm not running power boats over manatees. So, but I enjoy driving, and I am going to confess to your audience, I am the archetypal old guy with the muscle car. Okay, I don't drive anything.
What do you got? Do you have a Camaro like Sheriff Nanos?
No, I drive a Challenger, and
Sweet, the old cop car.
I'd like to see you two at a drag race or something.
I
You and
love that Challenger.
What do you think? No, you think he would win? Let me ask him, Sheriff. Do you think you'd win?
Know all the things we know, and we still need to know what you know, because there's something out there that we don't know.
Haters are going to hate. Go ahead, finish your Challenger.
I mean, look, how can you top a statement of that intellectual depth?
And we're gonna try to do that tonight. That's what we're going to talk about. But finish your Challenger car story.
And I didn't go all out and buy the 8-cylinder because as a man, I think you're compensating at that point. And I think viewers can read between the lines. The 6-cylinder with 308 horses is ample speed. And I drive the speed limit.
What year is it? Folks are asking.
2017.
Okay.
It's gunmetal gray. I am that old guy. At least I didn't get a convertible. Okay.
Have you floored it yet? Have you floored it?
No.
Have you floored it?
I have floored it once.
And did you get a nosebleed when you went back?
You actually get a full-on G-force. I actually floored it once when Joycey was still alive, and
did it scare her? Did she like it?
She said, "This is like you driving a cop car." I said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So sometime you'll have to put that pursuit video on again, Chris, with you and I running 100 miles an hour southbound on Interstate 5.
We'll have to play it one night. I still got the tape. We'll play it one night for sure.
Excellent. But thank you for having me here.
Oh, you're welcome. So we're going to talk about the first 48, not the TV show, the reality show here. The idea that here we are almost 6.5 months later, and it seems like we're, in a round robin. What are your initial thoughts, John, when we just even talk about these two numbers of 4 and 8?
I hate to feel like I'm flogging a dead horse, but we've discussed this before. The foundations for this systemic error, really catastrophic error, were laid long in advance of the incident that victimized Nancy Guthrie. And it's so much can't be undone. But I would argue that something still could be done, even if you were out just attempting to press street informants.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to really hit that pretty hard tonight. We're going to bring everybody, the greatest hits of Sheriff Nanos. I don't know why did his mother name him Chris? What in the
We
world
don't know.
was going on?
We don't know what you don't know.
We don't know.
When I think about the first 48 hours of the Nancy Guthrie case way back then, man, we were so naive to Chris Nanos.
Yeah.
We had no clue. And, we have a compendium of the mistakes that were made in the investigation. But, we also have, I don't even know what to call it. We just call it the best of list, facetiously here, about the lawsuits and about, of course, the perjury indictment that he is facing, that we are told that is sitting on the state attorney general's desk. We haven't heard any news about that.
Still time to get your email in at the AG's office above. Send him an email.
Yeah, that's the email address for the Arizona Attorney General. Of course, we knew nothing about his background when he was a cop in El Paso.
Yeah, and when he first started, I don't know how you felt, John, and didn't you kind of get the impression when he first did the first couple of press conferences, and thank you for saying bless you. I did sneeze, but I mic'd it out. I thought he was going to be an okay kind of, dude at first, and I kind of complimented him a lot, saying, hell, okay, it sounds like he's, going to do something here or that, but we had no idea what was going on behind the scenes in any way, shape, or form.
And it is kind of a sad commentary that we're talking most about Sheriff Nanos in a lot of regards and not as much about Nancy Guthrie, but it's not for a lack of trying.
Yeah.
When we went to Tucson, when Chris and I went to Tucson in June, and we talked to a lot of people. We did a lot of, it used to be called man on the street. We just talked to a lot of people, but we also focused on people who knew Nancy.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to talk.
Nobody.
And still to this day, you drive through Tucson, there are no billboards of Nancy or porch guy. There's no flyers of Nancy. There's nothing to indicate that there's a missing persons investigation still going on. And so, we're scratching our heads still about why that's not happening. And yet the sheriff keeps making news for all of either blunders or leadership problems or the crisis in the Pima County Jail, where inmates in custody are continuing to die under his leadership. And it's just sad. I guess where I'm going with this is I would love to be talking more about Nancy and who she is, and love to be talking about, hey, they have a person of interest. They don't. I'm just saying that. Or they haven't announced it. We wish we were talking more about the case and not the ancillary sideshow things that are going on that make this case so strange, so out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I think of the sideshow. John, what did you think initially when this thing kicked off, now looking back 6.5 months later?
Sideshow is an excellent analogy. I was prepared to wait and watch, but the guy instantly impressed me as being far too glib, far too willing to be in the in the spotlight. This was something that to me struck me as being something a PIO needed to be handling as opposed to the sheriff of Pima County, particularly since his comments were so unrehearsed and so scattered. You mentioned Sideshow. I'm thinking of Barker on the Midway.
Yeah.
Hurry, ladies and gentlemen, come see the vanishing old woman.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I'll guess your weight.
yeah, I will guess your weight. You know, and that may very well be unfair of me. I'm not a particularly kind or um,
Genteel.
trusting person willing to accept police administrators at anything other than them being, ambitious people on their way to the top. But I think my initial judgment, my gut instinct, has been borne out by what we've seen.
Yeah, and we when we first got on the ground out there, and thank you everybody for your kindness and your compliments. It means a tremendous amount to us, and all of those who are jumping in here. Thank you so much for being here this evening. We only ask one thing, though, is you hit that subscribe, hit that thumbs up, that like button, because that helps the algorithm, and enjoy the show. When we first got on the ground out there, Karen and I could not believe. I think that was the biggest takeaway when we got out of there was, as we were driving home, we looked at each other and we talked at length about the things we didn't see versus the things we saw. And you see now on whenever he's doing these 15-minute hits where he's telling them, oh yeah, this and that, and everything's going in the right direction. Well, I don't know. We didn't get that vibe. And now you saw Aaron Cross, the sergeant of the deputies union, just even today on TMZ. There's a video out with him on TMZ, and he said exactly the things we've been saying. That if it wasn't for a single billboard, which by the way we didn't see,
we never saw it.
We
went from the top of the city to the bottom and back and
On the
all
10.
over. We never saw it.
didn't see it.
So you can miss it.
Yeah.
For sure.
But let's say they have a billboard up, which I can't say that because I didn't see it. They say it is, but there it is. However, even as close as we were to, the homes, really within, 2 miles of each other, the, daughter's home and Nancy's home, you have no idea. Nobody knows that Nancy Guthrie is missing.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, the memorial that we saw of cards and flowers and teddy bears and all that kind of stuff for many months that was gathering outside of Nancy's house. Of course, that's been gone for a couple of months now. But you would think there would be a flyer up at, let's say, convenience stores or public buildings, anything to physically indicate what Sheriff Nanos talked about at the 6-month mark. Remember, he came out, they finally put a press release out. Many of us thought he should have had a press conference and taken questions. Of course, that's out of the question with him. And he went through all the things about Porch Guy and the characteristics of, does somebody have any of these characteristics? Well, honestly, it's really 6 months too late. Things like scratches on their hands or, to indicate, maybe a fight or whatever. That should have happened back in February when that video was released. But there's nothing to indicate that the sheriff's department is doing anything on this Nancy Guthrie case at all. And this is the time to do it. Obviously, for cold cases, you're never going to see missing persons flyers up. The small window to try to solve Nancy's case appears to be closing with time. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. And now here's an interesting takeaway from what's going on here. They just put a new investigator back over at the task force. He's a sergeant. And guess where he came from, John? Cold case.
What? The new sergeant?
Yeah. He's a 10-year homicide guy. He oversees the cold case squad, and now he oversees this investigation.
But it took them 6 months to move him in there.
And where was he previously? In the jail? In traffic?
No, in homicide.
Well, he was in homicide.
That's right.
And
then
Nanos came in and booted him.
To the cold case unit.
Moved him over. But now Nanos has decided to move him back and took the other guy, the guy he just promoted to lieutenant, who had 0 homicide experience. I mean, like that's like a big 0. Okay.
And we've talked about on the show, the reporting is that he messed up some evidence gathering on a totally separate, different homicide case that made that case unable to be prosecuted. But then he got promoted by Nanos to lieutenant.
Yeah, this is the guy that messed up all the evidence.
Oh, well, what would be more natural than to promote someone like that who messed up a homicide case? Unfortunately, for those of you who think I'm being funny, I've seen similar iterations of this in my career. People are promoted, and it seldom has anything to do with law enforcement acumen or performance.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're curious what you guys think. I thought it was really interesting. And now this guy, here he is now a lieutenant. And thank you, Alex, for shouting that out here. While everybody was focused on streamers like Alex and everybody else, by the way, which the majority of those cases have all been dismissed, which we said on this channel that would happen. And now the DA just needs to do one more and we're good to go. But while they were focused on those guys, nobody was talking about Nancy Guthrie. They're still not talking about Nancy Guthrie, and they're promoting people like that sergeant to lieutenant, who screwed up previous homicides. And guess what his sin was, John? Take a guess.
What is that?
He didn't collect evidence.
Well, if you've got to be able to recognize evidence in order to collect it. And
exactly.
Again, if you've stuck somebody in there who's never been like a CSI, like I was, or trained under, really tremendously skilled investigators, is he going to recognize evidence? I guess my next question would be was he working independently, and was there someone with him who perhaps did recognize the evidence, but elected not to help because this is a person who has been promoted and that perhaps hasn't earned the job? I can't say that for a fact, but I would like to think that if I was working with somebody, I'd nonetheless collect the evidence.
Yeah, great point. Great point. So tonight, for everybody, our TIR family here, we're going to talk about real life on what we do and how it gets done, and how it should have been done, quite frankly, in the very beginning, once that radio goes off. Now, here's the interesting thing. Those of you who know, we're still involved in the Cold Case Foundation, which, by the way, their McFarland Books has a brand new book coming out, and it's called No Stone Left Unturned. It's not available yet, but it just went back to the publisher for proofreading. John's actually going to write a blurb on it because he's reading it as well as others. And
an amazing book.
And all of the proceeds will go to the Cold Case Foundation to help support families and victims. There are over 16 authors in this book, and it's going to be the who's who of true crime and crime as a whole, from John Douglas all the way down to little old moi. So it's going to be a big deal, and it's coming. We'll keep you up to speed as when that comes. So what John and I want to do tonight is talk about, just briefly, we're not going to hammer this guy again because this guy already knows who he is. He's been hammered 10,000 times on the internet. But we're going to talk about the reality of what happens when you get a call out and you show up at a homicide scene. What does that feel like? How does it feel? What do you do? What kind of decisions do you make? And we're going to just kind of lay it out here for a moment, what we would have done differently in the first 48 here in the Nancy Guthrie case. And the interesting thing about this is with Karen's experiences, not only was she an investigative journalist, but she had transferred over as a public information officer. So she went from the media world to the law enforcement world, then back to the media world where she is again. But we're going to hear from her perspective as well as and what we would have done and what she would have done and how we all would have worked together to make the right decisions, hopefully, and because you only get one opportunity to do that. And here's the other really interesting thing tonight about all of us here. John was actually my supervisor, and of course he'll tell you he got combat pay for managing me. But at the same time, we, had a lot of experience in our city. Our old motto used to be where the debris meets the sea. And you'll read it in John's books. I mean, we had all kinds of craziness that would take place in Southern California. So we had a lot of volume. But that said, the most important piece of tonight's conversation, I hope, with you guys, and the one thing we love about you guys in our chat and who follow us is we're teachable, and you're teachable. That is the most important quality, in my opinion, of any homicide investigator on this earth. I was just on the phone about an hour ago with Vernon Gabert, who, by the way, we're doing another episode on his career, and we're just lining that up. He's the godfather of homicide. Him and a guy named Jigsaw John out of LAPD. Those two guys in the world, I don't care how much experience you have. Jigsaw John had 43 years in homicide at LAPD. Vernon, 35, 36 years with, decorated, etc. So you're not really going to learn or teach a lot to these guys, but you can definitely learn from them. And I've had the blessing of basically putting my fruit at both of the feet of those gentlemen. And then you get guys like John Douglas, you get guys like Greg Cooper, where we just don't talk about agents who were assigned to the behavior science unit, BAU, behavior analysis unit. We talk about the guys that ran it. We run in those circles with those people because I know I get a lot of criticism from people sometimes, why are you always, hammering the FBI or whatever. Okay. Well, no, I don't hammer all FBI agents. In fact, you'll see many of them in the book who are authors in the book. Just like cops, not all cops walk on water. There are cops that make mistakes. But a cop that cannot say, I made a mistake, those are the guys I hammer. And I will not stop hammering them because that's the right thing to do. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is getting into the first 48. Okay. And when I talk about the first 48, I'm going to start from what happens before you even get there. And what happens before you even get there is you have a supervisor like John. He has a lieutenant. he has a captain and he has a chief. And he has to answer up the chain of command to those guys and gals, whoever it may be, like the chain of custody in evidence, collecting evidence. But this is called the chain of command. Now, the unique thing about police work, everybody goes to the same academy, the police academy. Depends on where you are, is where you go. I went to the 12th Regional in San Diego. The guy next to me in line while we were running was a guy named Jack Brohammer. He played with the Cleveland Indians, the Boston Red Sox. He was a Major League Baseball player for many, many years. Everybody came from different parts of the world like a paramilitary organization would. The difference is, if you join the military and you want to be an officer, they send you to a different place. It's called Officer Candidate School, OCS. In law enforcement, everybody goes to the same spot. So the guy you're running next to could be your chief in 15 years. That's a really interesting dynamic to keep in mind as we go through this conversation tonight, okay? And that's why we're going to start with Nanos. I thought he was going to be an okay kind of situation. John thought he was going to be probably, 50-50 on that because he came into the middle of it. But what are some of Nanos's greatest hits right now that we know and how it could affect the Nancy Guthrie case even before it started? Karen?
So you're just talking about Nanos's background, things that don't have direct, I don't want to say direct impact on Nancy Guthrie's case because they all do. But are you talking about the mistakes made during the Nancy Guthrie case or before that, just his background?
His background.
Right. So I think most people know by now that he started off being a cop in El Paso. And he was accused of excessive force. Well, actually, I should back up. He had 37 days of reprimand. One of the most major incidents that he was involved with as a young cop in El Paso was with a suspect, with a handcuffed suspect. He hit the guy over, I believe, in the head with a flashlight, sending the suspect to ICU. Very serious. A grand jury considered indictment. There were some extenuating circumstances with that. All this to say Nanos was allowed to resign from El Paso PD, escaping prosecution. So that's the foundation of his law enforcement career. And we know it was such a big deal. He hid it from Pima County. He was not up front a couple years later when he showed up in Pima County, Arizona, applying for the sheriff's department. Now, we don't know why they missed it, but they missed it. And by the way, shout out to the local Tucson newspaper folks who did the digging that didn't happen. And this came out in March, a month or so after Nancy Guthrie went missing. And it absolutely affects the Nancy Guthrie investigation because this goes to the sheriff's credibility. So now we can kind of fast forward. He was an appointed sheriff in 2015 for the retiring sheriff who left. And then in 2016, he ran and he lost. And there were many reasons why he lost. One of them was, there were a number of lawsuits too that was starting to stack up. And there's pages and pages of lawsuits. Now, does a typical sheriff get sued in the course of his job? Yeah, probably. So it's a little hard to know what's excessive number of lawsuits. But there's many, many, many things.
Before you go there, don't go there yet. Just curiosity, John. Why is this important in the long run?
Well, in the long run, and not necessarily isolated to the Nancy Guthrie case, if a major criminal investigation is conducted, yet we have proof positive that both the sheriff and I believe it was his number two guy, both engaged in behavior that certainly on the face of it appears to be unethical. Well, that's a question that you can pose to the entire organization when you get to court. If I were a defense attorney, subpoena number one would be for Sheriff Nanos, and then subpoena number two would be for the detective commander, because when you're on the stand, the defense has a lot of latitude to question you about your probity and your history. So it's almost like a preloaded Achilles heel in the organization. And I'm stunned that this hasn't become a normal aspect of defense challenges.
Well, John, and so it sounds like obviously this could, let me ask it, could it potentially derail any prosecution with the Nancy Guthrie case and at least be something concerning that the defense is obviously going to make a big deal about?
I don't know if it endangers the case, although at this point we're speculating there is a case. I believe it's cold, but I could be wrong, and let me say that won't even be the first time since noontime that I've been wrong about something. But the reality is that this is going to be an issue, and it will be problematic. And while it may not cause a case to be dismissed, it will be a huge amount of grist for the defense's mill to explore various forms of misconduct occurring within the Pima County Sheriff's. And it's like being in a mud fight. And even if the mud they're throwing isn't really connected, it's still mud that's sticking to you.
Yeah, and so some of the other big hits that he had, obviously, Nanos had over 37 days off. We've beat that drum so many times, and I'm going to keep beating it because Nancy deserves it.
Yes.
That's why I'm going to beat it. I'm just going to keep pounding that drum that Nanos needs to go before this case is solved. And because there's two upsides to that. We've talked about them at length here on this channel. The first upside is the defense probably wouldn't put him on if he's gone. Because at that point, he can just say, well, I don't work there anymore. And they're going to have to now basically tie him back in to the decisions that are made after he left. If they solve it after he left, then he may not have standing at that point. It's what the court would call it.
I understand that, but I also think the defense could make a very cogent argument. I
agree
that, here we are. Let's say next month, 7 months later, the case is solved. They would make, I think, a strong argument. It would be up to the judge. And by the way, somebody thought I said something about, I believe it's a cult. No, I don't recall saying that. I don't believe this is a cult. But my apologies if I was, unclear or misspoke.
Yeah, don't worry. Keep moving.
So let me just talk about something else too. Long before Nancy Guthrie went missing, Sheriff Nanos had a lot of problems in his capacity as the leader of the Pima County Sheriff's Department. So from the 2024 election, he put his political opponent, a lieutenant, under him, basically under house arrest. It was admin leave 3 weeks before the election, so she couldn't get out and campaign properly. Total illegal move to make. And there's a very big lawsuit as a result of that. We've also seen other lawsuits. We've mentioned this many, many, many times on the show of Nanos's retaliatory behavior against other people, like the head of the Deputies Association. That's a big lawsuit. And of course, we've got the perjury, the elephant in the living room, the perjury charge against Nanos that's sitting on the Attorney General's desk right now. That came from a December deposition for one of these lawsuits where he allegedly lied under oath about his background. And so that's a very, very big deal. And also, there have been several votes of no confidence by more than one of the deputies' unions against Nanos. So how can you be an effective leader if you've got your troops continuing, for all the myriad reasons, most of which we're laying out here, a vote of no confidence? So he's got huge problems. Throw into that, you've got a major crisis going on at the Pima County Jail. Inmates are dying at a record rate. There needs to be some kind of an oversight investigation, something serious, that has something with teeth at the end of it. We've pointed that out on a number of episodes now. So there's a multi-pronged situation in Pima County with Sheriff Nanos' leadership. And, he decided to put himself at the head of the Nancy Guthrie investigation. He didn't need to. He could leave it to the experts, the criminal investigative division people. He could have had his public information officer, who is paid to get out there and to give statements, press releases, and press conferences to the media. He could have had that team do the work, but he's decided to put himself front and center as the elected official. And we've gotten nothing but mixed messaging for the last 6.5 months on the case. And, we're at the place we're at because of Sheriff Nanos.
And the reason why that's so important, even before the phone rings, is in situations like this, which we have seen quickly, when you get politicians involved versus professional investigators, you get what you see. I'm going to do a show where I've cut up some of the very first observations we had the very first week of the Nancy Guthrie case. And if you think about some of the things we were talking about, they've all come to pass, unfortunately. My biggest fear, for me anyway, was this idea that there just seems to be two camps of infighting. And that was from the federal side and the state side. No matter how much we hate it or how much we like it, the Pima County Sheriff's Office is investigating this situation as a crime, and that crime is probably a homicide. They have jurisdiction, whether anybody likes it or not. That's just the rules. That jurisdiction, with Nanos at the helm, will never change. There is no way on this earth that gentleman is going to give up that authority, especially as an elected official politician, because this is a do or die situation for Chris Nanos. Now, when you think about when that call comes out and you're sitting in your house watching the interview room on YouTube, so I don't watch anything else, I'm teasing, and your phone rings and you pick it up, Well, on the other end is going to be one of two people. It's either going to be John or it's going to be dispatch. And John would say, John,
Chris, we have, all right, we'll say in this instance, we're going to apply it to the Nancy Guthrie case. We have what appears to be the abduction of an elderly female from a residential neighborhood. Street officers have, or the original responding deputies have noticed blood on the front porch. We're going to work this with the presumption that this is either going to be a homicide or a assault with a deadly weapon. We know that their blood has been shed. So you've got primary and I've got a team coming out, and we're going to do it with an initial team of 4. But if we need more, I will roll everybody that we have to work this case. But I need you to be there to get eyes on it, and I'll meet you there.
Roger that. So then I would grab my I'd go over to my shelf, grab my book.
Is that your notebook?
Unzip it. And I have my notes. And I would write down at approximately 1848 hours, received a call from Sergeant John Lamb, respond to the address and the details that he gave me. Cursory. I am en route. I get dressed. I walk out to my car. I get on the radio and I say, I'm, whatever my call sign is. I was Ida 6. Ida 6, I'm en route to blah, blah, blah address. Dispatch would go 10-4. And I'm often running. Now, if I need to get, some energy or something like that, I may stop real fast to grab something to keep me up, because I know we're going to be running and gunning, as we used to call it. And when I roll up on the scene, my expectations are already in my head the moment I stepped out my door. I have my flashlight, I have my notebook, I have pens, I have my recorder, I have all of those tools that I'm going to need as an investigator. But the most important tool, like a surgeon, is the ability to ask the right questions. If I don't have that tool, fired up and ready to go, then I'm useless when I get on the scene. Because the very first couple of questions that you ask could determine whether or not a case goes this way or a case goes that way. Okay? Now, we're going to share with you some ideas on that. And if there may be some investigators listening, please chime in the chat. We'd love to hear your opinions as well. But a question is the most important piece of the puzzle. So now we all go on scene. I see John there. I walk up to John and we high five each other. I give him a donut. And he immediately will probably ask me, because he has 100 times, what do you need? What are you thinking? Where do you want to go?
And is our scene big enough? Do we need to expand the scene?
Do we need to shut it down? Do we need to open it up? Where are we going to go here? Okay. So now, the first couple of questions I'm going to ask are, let's talk about what we know right now. Outside of the tape, we're not even in the tape yet. All right. And sometimes what we used to do, and Karen didn't know this at the time, but we would create a secondary zone where you'd have the primary area of crime scene and then a second area where everybody would circle up. We call it a circle up, where everybody gets in there and you go under that tape. Sometimes if you wanted to make the journalists, feel important, we'd have our guy, but if it wasn't Karen, maybe Tom Bussey or somebody. And then they would come under the tape and they think they were in the original crime scene, but they weren't. It was just a made up zone that we made just for them.
Law enforcement and fire departments often do an area. It's not a taped off, but it's kind of a media zone. They used to do it back in the day. I don't know if they did it for Nancy Guthrie. It sounds like they just let everybody congregate in front of her house. But, typically for a scene that way, police can, the polite term, corral the media. But, again, maybe not Nancy's case, but is there still an active shooter? Is there other, concerns out there? And so it's best to have the media in one area and not potentially wandering into the crime scene or clogging streets where maybe emergency personnel still have to come in. So that's something that's taught, PIO 101, create an area for the media so they can get their job done and they're out of the way from law enforcement.
Okay, so we're going to, at that point, have a circle up. John's going to make the assignments so that everybody knows I'm the case agent. I will have a second. He will make that assignment. But typically we worked in twos anyway. Let's say it's me and Danny. So he would say, okay, you two knuckleheads are, Chris, you're primary, which basically means all I'm going to do is assemble the case. Hey, I'm going to make the book, what we call the homicide book, and I'm going to manage the flow of information and the direction of the case along with my partner, Danny, the second. Okay. We are going to make decisions collectively together. Two minds are much more important than one. Four eyes are much more important than two. Four ears are much more important than two. So everything we do, we are in sync with each other. My chain of command at that point, along with Danny, is direct to John. It is not to a lieutenant. It is not to a captain. It is not to a police chief. It is directly to my immediate supervisor. And is that mine or yours?
No, that's one of my cats now.
Okay.
He is coughing up a hairball, so there's a special moment on TIF.
Know all the things we know, and we still need to know what you know, because there's something out there that we don't know.
Okay. So at that point, everybody has an assignment. Now, also, the CSI folks will show up, the CSI manager. There is a detective assigned to oversee and manage CSI and the crime scene. That's number 3 on the team. So you have the primary, the second, and the crime scene manager. All 3 of these folks are in sync 100% with each other. And why is that important, John?
Well, assigned tasks mean that we know that areas will be covered. We're not playing loose. We know that the primary and the secondary have got the scene. We know that we have a homicide detective working in conjunction with the CSI. We also generally will employ a 4th detective to begin intelligence gathering. And that detective may not remain at the scene, but what that detective will do is get the address, any license plates connected, what we know about the victim, and we'll do a deep dive into the various databases so that we have some notion that, is this a person that there were previous calls for service? There were, that sort of work could also be done by actually a civilian, which is my Joycey
Yeah.
was what was known as a crime analyst, and you could put a few bits of information in front of her. She'd come back with 3 inches of paperwork. Everything you put, she had contacts that made it unnecessary to obtain warrants to get information we might need right away. Um, and so you now at this point have 4 people working this because
So
we don't know which at any point of these 4 points on the compass are going to come up with something. So we've got them all working.
so at that point, like John's talking about, now you have the intelligence side starting to work, because the reason that's really important is because you want to know if this is a house, does the suspect have dominion and control in any way, shape, or form over this house? Or is this a situation where there is an owner of that house, like one Miss Nancy Guthrie? Are there whoever has dominion, who owns that home? Who has possession of that home? And the reason for that is if in any way, shape, or form you have a doubt about who had control and custody of that home, or who has dominion in that home, who has stuff in that home, who anything in that home, get a warrant. You stop, you freeze, you get a warrant. You get a telephonic warrant. And so that's where the intel person comes in, and you immediately in that circle up. Now, there's also another piece of this at this point. If the family is there on scene, like Nancy Guthrie, and you have determined this is a crime scene, immediately you shut this thing down. You can put that tape up and you can keep it there until you say boo. Okay? Now, that's where the next person comes in, number 5. Because number 5, the case agent is going to say, okay, let's split them up. Let's get them back at the PD. Let's get them in independent interview rooms. And you, whoever that person is, I need you to babysit them. Okay. And as soon as I get an opportunity, meaning I'll come above the water line here in probably an hour or so, I'll head your way. Okay. And I'll say to John, I need 2 people to babysit these guys, the 2 RPs. I need that body camera downloaded from the first deputy on the scenes. I need them to go back to what they call evidence.com, which is an Axion system. I need to drop it in there because I want to see the video before I go in and start interviewing people. Because if they have body camera video from the very first 10 minutes of the reporting party, I want to watch that video if I can. So
let me jump in with a question. Let's obviously, for Nancy's case, we know that they called out search and rescue right away. And there was the whole search effort. They sent drones up. They had search dogs. They had search teams. How does that tie into you and your homicide team doing what you need to do at the house?
Well, that's John's job when he first goes on scene.
As the sergeant in charge of the scene.
Right. John's going to tell me why we're doing what we're doing. So, John, what would you ask the lieutenant on the scene there?
What I would ask the lieutenant to do is assign resources to begin a search of the immediate area. We don't know at what point this crime committed. We don't know how far perhaps Nancy got. We need to be able to get boots on the ground and drones in the air, if you will. And I'm sorry, technology does not replace boots on the ground. This is something I've seen over and over again. Oh, we'll put a drone up. Well, drones can't look under certain things. I mean, yes, I suppose they can cover wide areas. And drones would be ideal in this situation. You wouldn't want to use a helicopter for fear of, if you did actually discover evidence, and I've certainly seen this, physical evidence being blown to Munchkin land by rotor blast from a helicopter. So it would be appropriate to get a search out, but it would be clear in my mind, based on what we know about this scene, that I don't think this is a search and rescue situation. But what's the line? Belt and suspenders. You got to be you cross every T, you dot every I, you cover everything, because the defense is going to say, "Well, didn't you send teams out to look? Well, how do you know she wasn't there waiting and somebody picked her up later?" You've got to look at any criminal investigation from the way a defense attorney would want to use a crowbar to pry it apart.
Yes, and so to answer this question, to get back to John's point there for a second, you immediately want to assess whether or not this situation is a crime. You believe a potential crime could have occurred, or like they were dealing with, is this a walk away? What's the circumstances behind that? Okay. Which leads us into that question that I just had up. Do you separate A and T? You let them drive to the PD, and at the PD, the answer is 100%. You put them each in separate interview rooms. And here's the reason why. One of those two individuals said, "I last saw her alive."
Mm-hmm. The other thing you do while they're riding together, Chris, is you slip a device in and record them while they're talking, because no one has a reasonable expectation of privacy in the backseat of a cop car. And you're under no obligation to announce to them that you are recording them.
So the answer is yes. And the way you determine that is by talking to the first deputy on the scene. Because that first deputy on the scene in that circle is, by the way, who is also part of that circle up. We haven't even gone in the house yet. We're still outside, standing outside. And if you ever notice, when there's a high profile murder, you don't see all the detectives running into the house. The patrol guys have already done that, and you pray that they've done their job and they've shut it down appropriately and correctly, which, cops make mistakes. We're human. We all make mistakes, and sometimes newer deputies make mistakes, or newer officers, patrol officers, but you hope the senior officers who are there go, "Hey, whoa, let's go. Let's back out. Let's shut this thing down, and let's get a log going. And let's put the tape up." And once that tape goes up and that crime scene log comes out, nobody goes past those pearly gates without signing that log. Okay? Nobody goes into heaven. But by the way, that's what it is, because that's where the deceased are. The moment you cross that tape, you have entered heaven.
Yeah.
And if you mess that up, as an investigator, as a law enforcement officer, that's on you.
When you were saying that, all I could think of was the video at the Idaho 4 house in Moscow, Idaho, when we saw the prosecutor, a couple of prosecutors go in. We saw Idaho State Police go in. We saw deputies come and go. And I have that image in my head. I don't know if anybody else was thinking about that when Chris was saying that, because we've seen that video so often. And I think a lot of us were holding our breath like, oh my goodness, I hope it was all done by the book. But that's a different case. Anyway.
So you have this crime scene tape up, and that was a really neat thing to say on. You have this crime scene up. You have Peter at the gate with the crime scene log.
I'm sorry, that was Andy.
Andy's
That's
fine.
okay.
Andy's laying at my feet.
And if the devil shows up like Nanos and says, I want to go into heaven, you say, sign here. Date, name, ID number, time in, reason into. And 9 out of 10 times back in the day anyway, the brass didn't want to go because they didn't want a subpoena. Because the moment you put your name on that piece of paper, you're getting a subpoena. But if you really think about that, and when I teach homicide investigations, and John knows because we've taught classes together, we actually taught the group in Maryland right after the DC sniper shooting. Remember that one, Johnny?
John Melmos, yeah.
And so this idea of and I reiterate it to him, look, you are crossing into the pearly gates here. All these victims deserve the best from you. The moment you go underneath that tape, because you have to tell their story and you cannot screw it up. We can't screw it up. Okay.
I would add, Chris, that there are some people who show up that they just need to be told no. I don't, we in one instance we had a murder at 180 Canyon, which was an apartment complex that was a lot of violent crime occurred, and the mayor showed up and he was running for re-election. We called him the Vulture because he'd show up at murder scenes and glad hand the bystanders. And he marched up to the barrier tape, and patrol officer says, I got the mayor here. And so I walked up and I said, why, Mayor? So I'm going in. And I go, no, you really aren't. And you understand I'm your boss. Actually, no, you're the elected mayor of Oceanside. My boss is the chief of police and the city manager. Well, I'm coming through. If you go underneath that tape, the only place you are going tonight is the Vista detention facility in the back of one of my cop cars. I will arrest you for interfering with a crime scene. So, you wouldn't dare. I said, you really don't know what I'm capable of. But at any rate, he finally backed off. And of course, I got yelled at. He's the mayor. He's got no business at a homicide scene. For that matter, the sheriff really doesn't have, or a chief of police. What are they going to contribute? Nothing.
Well, and this is one of the things that is an interesting phenomena that is taking place right now. But that's another show. We'll talk about that in another show. So now that everybody's circled up, everybody has jobs. Everybody has responsibilities. John's responsibility is I report to him. He reports it up the chain of command. John also meets with the PIO and the press. I don't want to talk to the press. I want nothing to do with the press. And my sweetheart will tell you, I didn't talk to her for a whole year before we were ever a thing. In fact, that's another show in of itself. Because I didn't like the press. I still don't like the press in different ways because they always steal your stuff and they never give you credit. Okay? End of story on that one. That's another show. But now that I'm not talking to the press, my partner's not talking to the press, and nobody involved underneath that tape is talking to the media. Well, the media is the beast. They have to be fed. You have to feed the beast. That's where John comes in. John meets with me and we have a conversation. What do you want to say? What do you want out? What do you don't want out? Where do we want to go? I give him my opinions. I give him my voice. He will hold back anything that I ask him to hold back because he knows that he trusts me enough that it could be critical to the pieces of this puzzle. Now, in this puzzle, if John would have come to me and asked, what do you want to say, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
I would say, John, here's what we got. Patrol's telling me right now, 84-year-old woman, abducted probably in the middle of the night. We've got a gap here in our time frame. She lived alone. She lives alone. She has a pacemaker. She's on heart medication. She has limited mobility. And she was last seen last night or early morning. We're not sure yet. Okay. There is an open window here of time. I don't know what that time is just yet. However, she went to her family member's house at 5:32. She was picked up by an Uber. We have information that she was dropped off by her son-in-law at 9:48. The garage came up. 9:50, the garage came down. I have blood on the porch. Here's what I want to say. Boom. This is how the family got in. This is the last time she was seen. This is who she was last seen with. The investigation is ongoing. We have evidence of blood on in the scene. We're treating this like a potential homicide scene. You good with that, boss?
Sounds excellent. You've potentially given just enough to momentarily satisfy the beast. Yet at the same time, as far as actual information, it's, I don't know, it's like trying to eat soup with a fork. There's really nothing there. And so, which the media becomes annoyed when we do that. But on the other hand, we attempt to err on the side of caution early on. We just can't be certain what is going to be important and what isn't going to be important. So that's you've nailed it. And I would do my best to just give this information. I would massage your information, give it to the PIO, because I don't need to be talking to the media, because I'm also likely going to be dealing with command staff who all want to know exactly what's happening. So I actually got to be blocking them from involving themselves in these questions, because you can waste so much time in an investigation answering questions from police administrators who've got nothing to do with the case.
Okay,
can I make an observation?
Yep.
So let's walk through the first early steps of the Nancy Guthrie investigation. Okay. So that Sunday night, we saw Sheriff Nanos gave a TV interview out at the scene because it was a black night shot. Okay. That, by him doing that, he elevated the case instantly. If he had, and here's, you didn't ask, but here's how I would have handled it if I was the Pima County PIO. Obviously, the local media, they're listening to scanner traffic. They know something's going on at that location. They go out there. What I would have done is done a couple things. Put John's information on a press release and put it out over, so they release it in social media and they send out an email media list. The first night, information is limited, and we're trying, and obviously we would know Nancy Guthrie is the mother of Savannah Guthrie, who is a famous person. So I would probably want to tamp it down a little bit in that's only the first 6 to 8 hours, because we're still getting information. You guys are doing your investigation. The media is asking a ton of questions that a PIO would not be able to answer, and most likely not know almost all those questions. And then the next day, you don't do anything out at the scene. So let's say that first night there was, once everybody heard, hey, this is Savannah Guthrie's mom, maybe they had not just local media, maybe Phoenix media got there that evening. It's hard to know how much media was there that first Sunday night. And I would have had, if there was enough, you have the press conference outside of the Pima County Sheriff's Office. You don't even invite them into the room because it's short and sweet. It's not going to be a lot of information. And we're going to update you with more information tomorrow.
Moscow PD actually did that right. They got him away from the house and they had that press conference.
That's what you do.
To your point.
That's what a PIO professional does. The next day, now we're 24 hours later. Now you have huge interest. You've got people flying in from all corners of North America and beyond. It's a huge story. Now you hold your press conference inside the Pima County Sheriff's Department, but you don't put the sheriff on. If you want to put your lieutenant, so John, it would be your boss. You don't even go on. You're not even the person in the press conference. It's one of the command staff, but it's not the chief.
And why is that important?
Sheriff.
Why is that important? And from both of your hats, as a journalist and a PIO, why is that important?
Because if a sheriff or the leader, if the organizational leader comes out and makes the statement, it's huge. It's like you can't go any more higher up. And you always, the first 48, 72 hours, you got to give yourself as a PIO room to understand the scope of the case and what this warrants for the media. And we did not have a lot of information in the first 48 hours. Remember, it took a reporter going up to the steps, I think it was day 2 or 3, filming the blood outside. We didn't even have that. So again, I'm on the next day, press conference inside the Pima County Sheriff's Department, not the sheriff. It's the lieutenant, maybe it's the captain, and he reads from his notes. We've got bullet points. It's basically the press release. Okay, so 24 hours ago, here's what we have. 84-year-old woman, Nancy Guthrie, and you acknowledge the mother of Savannah Guthrie disappeared from her home. We've got blood on the front porch. All those bullet points of information. And you take a couple questions, but he's prepped, he or she, it could be a female lieutenant or captain, but we're not going into the timeline in the first 24 hours. No, way too soon. You give them more information, stuff that's not going to affect the investigation, but it's going to keep the story out there because the media is huge to keeping the story out there. And yeah, we didn't have the porch guy video at that point. It was a total fumble. Once the porch guy video came out, Sheriff's Department should have had a press conference saying, okay, we need the public's help. If you've seen this guy, if you know of somebody who was in Nancy's neighborhood, you go down all the stuff that they waited 6 months to release. You do it right after you have that video. But anyway, back to what I was saying is, okay.
John,
you keep it short and sweet, and you keep them at the law enforcement agency knowing they're still going to drive by the house. But for the neighbors, like I just got to make this point. I think Nanos created the situation in that neighborhood that had the neighbors furious because he wasn't encouraging the media to hang out at the Pima County Sheriff's Department where they need to. Right now, obviously, when the FBI came back or Pima County's doing searches of the home, of course, the media is going to be out there filming. They're going to send their drones up, but it was a lost opportunity to keep some of that media traffic out of the neighborhood, for the benefit of the residents who live there, keep the story going, feed them information from the Sheriff's Department headquarters.
Well, the only thing I'd add to that, Karen, is both Chris and I were hostage negotiators. And the reason why you would not put a chief of police or a sheriff on is the same reason that you wouldn't have the top cop in an organization handle a negotiation, because he can never defer. He can never say, I'm going to have to get back to my boss on that. I'm going to have to find out. He's grabbed the spotlight And as a consequence, whatever he says becomes the benchmark. I don't know whether this was motivated by a sense that only he could look out for himself, or whether it never occurred to anybody at Pima County Sheriff's that you actually want to have this information effectively managed. But there we have it.
Yeah, and so all amazing points. Thank you. Guess what? We haven't even left the house yet or gone into the house yet. All of these decisions are made like that. In fact, there's research that says well over 300 and something decisions within the first hour on the scene of a homicide scene are made. And guess what? You don't get a second chance if one of them is a mistake. And I'm going to raise an issue tonight that nobody's been talking about. But of course, when you come over here, I'll bring it up. And the next question the case agent's going to ask: who has standing and dominion and control over this home? If a family member says, well, she's my mom, you say, thank you. Are you on any of the lease? Are you on any of the paperwork? Do you have power of attorney? Do you have anything that gives you the authority to allow me to search that home? If this person says no, we have to, before we go back into that house, because now what they call, I don't know where John went, what they call exigent circumstances has expired. Because you've searched the house, you've not found her, and that's Buddy. You've searched the house, you've not found her, you have blood on the porch, you just don't get to now. Sorry, we got to take care of Buddy real fast. You just don't get to go walking into that home. Okay? You don't get to do that. Because if you do, and they didn't have standing in that home, and they signed a consent to search form, that is what they call fruit of the poisonous tree. And everything that you gather in that home could be suppressed by a court in a pretrial hearing. And that is a huge mistake. That could be a huge mistake. So here's why I'm saying this tonight. If in fact family members, quote unquote, gave consent to the home, but Nancy Guthrie owns that home, and they did not obtain a search warrant for that home, all the DNA that we keep talking about could be for naught. Because if they got to a point where the exigent circumstances had been determined that she wasn't in there, she hadn't been found around the house, the area, etc., but now you have a crime scene, quote unquote, the very first night. You have to stop. You have to get on the phone and get a telephonic search warrant. Because the family cannot give you consent to search that home or her cars outside of them saying, we got here, mom was not here. You guys go ahead and keep doing what you need to do. Okay? That's not how it works. Once it was determined Ms. Guthrie was a potential victim of a crime, then you need to get on the phone and you need to tell a judge what is going on in that moment, that day, those circumstances. And a judge will say, okay, detective, what else do you have? And you're going to lay out your probable cause on a telephonic search warrant. You're going to tell them the son-in-law dropped her off or she got picked up at 5:32. She was dropped off at 9:48, 9:50. Later on, they find out, obviously, but I'm talking about the first night, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself. And the judge is going to say, okay, you have blood on the porch? Yes, sir. Do you know whose blood that is, detective? No, sir, we don't. Not at this point. That's why we want to collect it, and we want to get a DNA analysis on it. All right, that sounds reasonable. Anything else in that house? Yes, sir. The family reported her watch is there, her items are there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's fine, detective. Anything else? Yes, sir, Your Honor, just in case. And you have a packet that every homicide investigator carries. And in that packet are templates for these types of warrants. And these templates, you read it over the phone. And you give your training and experience, you give your schooling, you give your probable cause, and then the judge says, okay, sign my name. You sign the judge's name, you date and you time it, and then he says, detective, how much time do you need? In Arizona, in California, we had 10 days, up to 10 days, or we would have to go back to the judge and ask for an extension. But the judge says, okay, let's hypothesize. In Arizona, by the way, I think it's 5 days with an extension up to 10. I'll have to double check that just to make sure. But the judge says, okay, detective, you have the warrant. First thing in the morning, when the court opens, get it over here to get it stamped officially by the court and my clerk. Yes, sir, Your Honor. Okay, we'll make that happen. All right. Have a good evening. Try to get some sleep. Now, you have a warrant. What the judge didn't ask was, did the daughter give you consent to the house? Because during that conversation with the judge, if you say the son-in-law dropped her off and he was the last person to see her alive, the judge isn't going to ask, does he live there? And if he does ask that, you answer, no, sir, he does not. Okay, well, how about the daughter? She doesn't live there either, Your Honor. Okay, well, then guess what? They can't give you consent to search the mother's house. And every time I hear this idea that the family gave consent, I shiver. That they went in that house with a signed, quote, consent form. and not a search warrant, everything from that point forward could be fruit of the poisonous tree, including all this DNA that we keep talking about. Because the first question that's going to be brought up by the defense is, Detective Jones or Detective McDonough, yes, sir, did Tommaso give you consent to search Miss Nancy's house? Yes, sir, she did. Yes, sir, he did. Can you show me where he has standing in this home? Now, if I can't show that he has a power of attorney or that he was overseeing Miss Guthrie's estate because she had, mental capacity issues or any problems that a court had deemed, we're going to allow him to have, or her, custody of the estate or help her, make them a joint custodian of the estate. If I can't show any of that, then the judge is going to say, well, then we're going to suppress this evidence. They had no standing over this. And that's prejudicial to the client, whoever that client is. Okay? So now, I'm hoping that they would have followed the protocol that I'm talking about, standing outside. We haven't even gone in the house yet. And this is within the first 48 now. So now we go in the house. And we also are now, while going into the house, I get the first patrol guy on the scene and say, you have a way in? Yes. All right. You and I, and probably Danny, the three of us, you're going to walk us into that house and you're going to show me, and I'm going to step where you step and walk where you walk. But before we do that, what have you touched? What have you seen? What is critical? What is non-critical? What do you think happened? Remember, the most important surgical tool any detective has is the question. Those are going to be the same surgical tools a judge is going to ask you on the phone when you got that warrant. And now you have this warrant. And you're going to go in with this officer, and he's going to go, there's a watch here, there's her cane, there's her medication, there's this, there's that, yada, yada. And by the way, there's blood on the porch. Okay. Whenever I hear the word blood, like John, I don't even want to see it yet. Okay. Because I don't want to step in it. I don't want to transfer in it. I don't want to do anything about it.
Yeah, I don't want to presume that's the only place it is, too.
I just want to know there's blood, and a lot of it. Okay. And as a result of that, okay, boy, he's being a booger tonight, isn't he?
He is. I'm going to go take care of Buddy and calm him down.
Go ahead.
Bye, everybody.
She'll be back here in a minute. So hang on for a minute. Let me readjust. Sorry, everybody, but we're on a roll here, so I don't want to mess this up. Okay. So once we're done seeing what we need to see, because what I want to do as a case agent, I haven't even gone back to the station yet to talk to the RPs. And in this case, it would have been Annie and Tommaso. I want to soak up what I can initially in that crime scene. And I'm going to spend 15 minutes looking at this wall, this wall, this wall, this wall. And I want to feel it. I want to smell it. I want to taste it. I want to know everything about Miss Guthrie's bedroom, living room, possible point of exit. I want to hear the patrol officer tell me, hey, and by the way, the doors over here were propped open. Because I'm going to ask, how'd that happen? Well, the family said when they got here, they were propped open. Okay, what time did the family say they got here? Yada, yada. And I want to know that story. And I want to know it intimately. And then once we're done, okay, with that story, Danny and I are going to look at each other and say, where do you want to go? And I'm going to say, first of all, I want to get his body camera up into evidence.com because I want to see the very first statements that the RPs gave. Why is that important to the audience? And John, why is it important to hear what the reporting parties said when they were first on the scene with the deputies?
You never want that information through a filter. Even if the officer is repeating the information by rote, that doesn't mean that the entire message can be perceived. And if you've got a young deputy, perhaps the less experienced deputy is not going to notice verbal cues or visible physical cues that a skilled investigator is going to look at and go parse the words and perhaps come up with an entirely different conclusion than the deputy. We need to see not merely the words, we need to see the behavior, we need to see how the reporting parties are presenting themselves. And we actually need to get a look at that body camera at the scene just to note if anything's changed. But we need to know before we talk to them, because if there is some difference in accounts, that's where it's going to show up. You're going to have the video of the initial information and compare it against what you're hearing later. And so it's vitally important.
And everything that's going on here, I am taking notes. And you'll see, I put it up a while ago of a homicide scene that the media caught me, where I have my notebook and I'm writing notes. And in fact, there's even a scene that I'll put it up, maybe not tonight, but on another program. And it's the front page of the news where, we're writing these notes. Every time I, talk to somebody else or I do something else, not talking the investigators. I mean, we're talking a flow of information that's rapidly moving. Okay. So now Danny and I walk outside. That first deputy is done. He's done. I say to him, okay, we got it from here. Whoever the crime scene manager is, now I debrief Joyce, who's on the intel side. I want to know everything about Annie. I want to know everything about Tommaso. I want to know everything about this residence. I want any previous calls of service here. I want to know about any kind of series we may be having around here. If it's, a burglary series, hot prowls, I want to know everything in this arena. Give it to me about 5 miles out. And
any tickets, any traffic stops, anything that happens.
This is all moving. Okay. Find out who the local hotels are, pull any type of registrations. That's, by the way, how we caught Brandon Wilson, one of the ways, who killed a 9-year-old boy in a bathroom. He had registered at a local hotel, and we had his name on a registration card. That was the old days. So all of this stuff now, these decisions are made instantaneously, standing there. I would also ask for any kind. What are the Fusion Center there in Phoenix? What do they have, which is an intelligence center? Our intelligence gal, Joyce, would work with them. I would say also give me any cars inbound, outbound, figure out if we have any rentals in this area. If so, what colors, what kind, who, what, when, where, and why. Today's technology, all that is electronic. And sometimes you may or may not need warrants. It all depends. Okay. If it's an active investigation and you can show that it's exigent circumstances, sometimes a judge will let you do that. Sometimes they would say, it's best you pull a warrant. And guess what? You do that. You assign other detectives to write those warrants, give the probable cause, and you make sure that data is inbound before you even leave that house that night. Okay. And now that you have the wheels rolling, you get the crime scene manager and the CSIs. Let's go. You and probably two other people. You go in and you say, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. What do you guys see? And you have a conversation. Okay. Now, at any time, they have a question, they have a thought, they stop. And they pick up the phone, today's technology, a cell phone. Okay. And you ask that, don't worry about it. It's animal night.
I'm sorry, Andy's laying at my feet talking to me.
But Buddy's off into the distance with Karen right now. So we're good. At any time, you stop and you ask. You don't do. Because you only get one chance to make the right decision. Remember, the moment you cross that tape, you entered into heaven. In heaven, you are trying to figure out how the devil got there. And you need to figure out, as an investigator, why the devil is in heaven. Nancy Guthrie is sound asleep in her bed. How did the devil get there? And you don't get a second chance. And so that crime scene now gets smaller, not bigger. And in this case, the next piece of the puzzle is this thing an international problem because you're so close to the border? Actually, they're further than we were. We were 30 miles from the border, but we used to ask this question all the time. In fact, John and I worked at Caper with 3 suspects we've worked cartel cases. They fled, because we were 30 miles from the Mexican border. And that's a different game because now you need other kind of warrants. You need all kinds of other stuff. Okay. So you got to keep that into consideration. So going slower, and this is probably why I talk so slow sometimes. I know people are like, get to the point. Okay. No. There's an old saying, no man got to the top of the mountain by falling there. You have to take your time. I am one that takes my time. And I have a 90% solvability rate as a result of that in my career. It's not about me. It's about listening and learning from the right people at the right time in my career. Some of the best in the world. And you're going to see Vernon in a couple of weeks again on my program. He wrote that book in there. It's the 5th edition of Homicide. Time is on your side. So you take advantage of it. You don't push an investigation. You walk with an investigation. There are 2 types of leaders. If you were to take a string, and I'm sure you've seen this in your life, if you put a piece of string on a table and you stretched it out taut, if you push that string, what happens to it? It bundles up. If you pull the string, what happens to it? It follows you. If you're methodical and you're slowly moving forward, the string will stay straight. Nanos likes to push things, and it gets all screwed up at the end. A leader likes to move things forward by having it follow you. Anybody can be a supervisor, but only a few people can be leaders. And when you're working homicides, you have to be a leader, because as a case agent, for an example, you have a lot of decisions that are going to rest on your shoulders when you put your butt in that chair and you put your hand up in that courtroom. It will be your butt, not Nanos's butt, on that chair. And so all of these things now, after 14 hours, is discovered. The family arrives at 11 to 11:56. Depends on who you listen to. Nano says 11. He later says 11:56. The 12:03, the 12:15. All of these times, this crunch, this timeline crunch, becomes significantly important, because that 56 minutes now is like an eternity in a case like this. Because when you start looking at what the scene has shown you as a case agent, the items left behind, you don't ask who. Investigators get in trouble when they start asking who committed this crime. That's the wrong question. Right, John?
Exactly. That's often really the very last thing you need to be looking at, simply because you don't have enough information. So you don't want to be recklessly speculating. But I've also noticed that people who are inexperienced in homicide investigations often blunder about, and we've certainly worked for a few. And now the best you can do is keep them as far away from, like, if the equivalent is you put a toddler in a playpen and hope that they're not going to, eat the crayons and spill applesauce on the sofa. That's often the case when you're dealing with people who've never investigated murders.
Great point. Great point. And so the bigger question is always in the initial 48 hours of an investigation, the very first question every homicide detective, every good detective needs to be thinking is the question about why. Why was her phone and wallet, hearing aids, all the other stuff in the left behind column, why was all that left behind? You go to the next column. Why? is the Nest doorbell camera, the mount still there? Why is there unusable footage? Why Nancy herself? Why was she selected? Why? Then the physical traces. Why blood on the porch? Why potential blood on the interior? Depending on if you listen to Nanos right off of the bat, he says there could be blood inside, outside, fluids, some DNA, we're not, blah, blah, blah. Why? Why did the search begin? Why in the afternoon was it called off? Why was this deemed a crime scene? And why did it take so long to come to that conclusion? All of that question, all those, that why piece of this puzzle will answer the who.
Oh, yeah.
And then go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, and here's the why. Why is there the disparity in the time when the body-worn cameras and the police records would clearly indicate when deputies arrived on the scene? Why is that information being withheld? It is a puzzler. Unless there is some component to this that is case specific regarding timelines. But for most of us working homicide, when we arrive is, one of the very first facts established. Yet here we are 6 months later, and we really don't know when law enforcement arrived on the scene.
Exactly. And so I see some people in here, they may be trolls if they are talking about the sound. Who's having bad sound? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Just give me a yes if the sound's fine. Yeah. So no sound. Okay. So go on and delete every one of those no sound trolls. Okay. Get them out of here. Okay. That said, if we stay with the why question, all of these questions now start to either make sense or not make sense. All right. And so with that, you now go back to your interviews and you sit down with Tommaso and you interview him deeply, at length, not accusatory. Tell me what happened. What was she wearing? And I'm not even going to give any more because hopefully those interviews are going to go and the right people are going to be in there. And then you're going to go listen to the 911 call while he's still in the interview room. Okay. Just delete the comment, not the people. Don't block the people. Just delete the comments about the sound. The idea that he and she are sitting there at the PD. You're going to go listen to the 911 call and see if they line up. And if they don't line up, you're going to make a note. Why they don't line up. And then you're going to try to ask to find out why their house is important. What time did she get over to your house? What did you do? What was her temperament? Had she taken her medication? If so, how do you know that? If you weren't at the house when she got there, when she got here. I need you to understand, none of this is accusatory. You want me to find your mother. I'm sure of that. Now, I'll just leave that stuff there because I don't want to give any ideas to anybody. We'll let the investigators do their thing. So from there, once you're done with those key interviews, and those are the key interviews, you get the third key interview, the last proof of life. The first proof of life, last proof of life, is Tommaso. The second is the Uber driver. And now, as the case agent, you want to talk to that individual personally. What was she wearing? What time did you pick her up? Do you have your devices? May I get consent to download your devices? Does your car have a camera? Do you have electronics, any kind of electronic video with her in this car? Where did she sit? What time did you pick her up? What time did you drop her off? Did somebody come to the car to assist her out of the car? If not, did you walk her into the house? If so, what door did you go into? Did you see who was in the house when you arrived there? How long were you there when you dropped her off? And the list goes on. All of this information now becomes critical. All of it. And now you go back and you sit down with Danny, who has been interviewing Annie simultaneously. The case agent had Tommaso because he ultimately, or she, is going to be responsible for the totality of the circumstances. So the last person who said, I saw her alive, that would be a critical interview. And that's the first person the case agent wants to interview and should interview. And now they're sitting in the interview rooms at the station. You come out, you call your supervisor, you say, we need a meeting. John comes up to back to the station. What do we have? Now, there could only be 3 of you sitting in that room right now. John, Danny, and me. And we tell John, this is what we have. Okay? What do you want to do? Let's call whoever at the crime scene. Hey, what are you seeing? A, B, C, and D. Send me pictures. Today's technology, all that stuff can be sent instantaneously to your cell phone. Okay, well, hey, I just had a conversation with such and such so-and-so, the Uber driver. Yeah. They said there should be a green vase over by the front of that door. Is it there? Let me check. Hypothetical, of course. That's not reality, meaning in this case. But though you guys get the drift. Okay? Boom. At some point, a decision was made within the first 48 hours to impound a car. Two cars. Think about that. This is not a hypothetical. I've been saying this since day one. Actually, day 2, 3. Somebody made a decision. It was the case agent that says, Sarge, I got A, I got B, I got C, I got D, I got E, and I got half the alphabet here right now. And it doesn't feel, look, or line up right now. I need the car. And he's going to say, get a warrant.
Yeah, get a warrant.
Grab it.
Mm-hmm.
I, again, am going to get on the phone. Now, by this time, it could be morning. And I'm going to impound, I'm going to pick up the phone, and in California, it's called 1185. It's a tow truck. And I'm going to get on the phone, and I'm going to call the crime scene manager. You got Nancy's car there? Yeah. I need that I need it on 1185 for processing. Okay? Hey, I also need Annie and Tommaso's ride. Roger that. We'll get it.
And
Thank you so
flatbeds too. Flatbeds.
Yep.
You don't put them on regular wreckers or tows.
Pull them up, put them in the yard, put them in a secured evidence facility, which we had. We had a big warehouse where you could just pull a car in and they process it up there. All right. Thank you very much. Click. Okay. Now, you now have to go to a judge again and say, Your Honor, here's A, B, C, and D. I want to search that car for all this other stuff, whatever it is. And the judge is either going to say yes or no. If he says yes, you don't need consent from anybody, because the judge said under the court, under the rules of evidence and under the law, you can seize that car because you had probable cause to believe it's involved in a crime. Don't forget that. In this case, do not forget that. Okay? And guess what? That car goes into impound. Now, in this case, where it gets screwed up in the first 48, is you have a sheriff out there just shooting from the hip. He's just firing off any direction he wants to go, like a 6-cylinder car running on 2 cylinders, without talking to the case agent, the evidence teams, or anybody else. Maybe not even his supervisors, like John. He's just loading and shooting from the hip. I can say that confidently because this thing is so screwed up. This is exactly what you would see. This is exactly what happens when politicians get in the middle of a very high profile case. I have it from firsthand knowledge that when the sheriff came out and said everybody was cleared, the homicide team did not know he was going to say that. And they almost fell off their chairs. Now, I don't know what that means, but I can tell you this. It means that he shot from the hip. I can tell you that much. And that shooting from the hip resulted in a pushback between the FBI and Nanos, and that infighting that was taking place behind the scenes. And you can go back to the very first week when John, myself, Dr. Gary, others talked about the animosity between the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Office. We could see it and sense it based on our experiences in the past working high-profile murders. When you have that kind of problem, you get an FBI director who tweets what the suspect looks like. You get a sheriff's sergeant assigned and to a task force on the FBI, and a sheriff saying, well, the FBI was on the scene the first day. You get this tit for tat that takes place when we were saying, just in our experiences, that's not how it works, folks. That's not how it works. Because now this stuff gets lost. Porch Guy gets lost. The time gets lost. The digital tech gets lost. The sources gets lost. I love this one. Nest disconnects 147, motion detected 212. Where?
Yeah.
Is it the front porch? I guess not, because that was disconnected at 147. You see, you end up with this garbage, like technology, garbage in, garbage out. You end up with half-wit statements to the public. And the public is left to decipher what every minutia detail on the recovered video is about. Well, the cartels hold their guns like this.
No, they don't.
Well,
Come on.
right. All of this stuff, well, those, that's a woman underneath there. All of this stuff starts getting broken down minute by minute. Well, he used the the trees there, the brush, to make sure that it would whatever trigger the camera. Okay, and the list goes on. The list goes on. Guess who gets lost in all of this? Is Nancy. What has been established up to this point? Nancy was dropped off at 9:50 and gone by midday, February 1st, the next morning. The doorbell camera disconnected at 1:47 and was physically removed. A masked figure was recorded on the property around 2:12 a.m. But we don't know what that means. Because if the nest disconnect is at 1:47, there's another masked figure or something at 2:12. What's still open is no suspects have been identified, no vehicles have been described, and no witnesses other than 3 people. The Uber driver, the son-in-law, and the daughter. Nothing else. Nobody else. Absolutely zero. What else is open? Where she was taken. And whether she was nearby at any time after 2:12. We still don't even know if the ransom notes were authentic. As of this day, 6.5 months later, that is still an unconfirmed window that has not been open or closed. So what happened on February 2nd in this first 48 was immediately a public shift because Nanos did not know, nor his inexperienced team, initially what they were doing. Let's just face it. Let's be honest about it. It was a mistake. Many mistakes were made. And so that shift from not telling it the way it is or doing what they should have done, and in the interim, they released the crime scene. And now you have the national media walking up on that porch and taking pictures
of evidence abandoned, not collected,
of the blood on the porch
and the mat
that we know of, that we can see. So that was a public shift from that special announcement that day in that press conference. They said that Nancy was kidnapped, abducted, or otherwise taken against her will. He emphasized she could not walk far on her own, and the home was being treated as a crime scene. Well, they had established that probably within a half hour, I would submit to you. And next thing you know it, a ransom note shows up.
But not sent to the family, but sent to an email to a local media with an email subject that would not draw attention to anybody reviewing these tips. Again, this is why. Why would a ransom demand be sent in that manner? Why would there have been no offer of proof of life? I think your viewers here can probably answer that one for themselves.
And in this ransom letter, are only two details: a watch and a light. Why only two details? And what is the significance of just mentioning the watch and the light? Again, you know what we haven't heard is the receipts that were left, and I did a program about this recently with Tommaso and Annie for the items recovered under a search warrant out of their vehicle.
Or is the receipt and inventory still sealed?
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Now you guys do the math on that one. When they executed the search warrant at the house, hopefully, they left a receipt. Within 24 hours, the family knew going into that house, if they found the receipt, they knew what the cops had because they read it.
You got to leave a copy. Chris, can I make one other point?
Please.
If you were, if as people have suggested that this was an abduction for the purpose of kidnapping, in order to show proof of life, a digital photograph, which would provide taken inside the house, which would provide a time and a location, would be proof of life. This is what I would anticipate a kidnapper searching for ransom would do, yet there is no evidence that a photograph was taken. There was at no point any evidence offered of life.
Great point. Solid point. So you get your car back after 40 days. Everything is on that inventory sheet or that return.
Receipt and inventory, R&I.
R&I, back to the judge. The only people that know what's on that receipt are the law enforcement authorities, Annie and Tommaso, and the family. I want you to think about that. I don't know what that means. I will tell you this. If I had suspicion in any way, shape, or form within the first 48 that I wanted that car and I would seize it as a piece of evidence, I would be crapping my drawers that receipt was available to other people in an ongoing investigation. Because now nobody knows what direction it can go. And guess what? When the FBI got there and they executed a search warrant on Carlos's house, on Luke's house, they left a receipt as well on all those houses. There's nothing that can stop that under the law. You have to leave those inventory and control receipts. That's the rules. Can't get around it. So my question is, what's on them? I'm probably the first one in the Nancy Guthrie case. I said this 6 months ago that said, well, there's a receipt out there And you guys saw I went to the tow yard where they towed the cars in Tucson. I showed you the evidence facility. It's in my videos. It's not news. It's not news from other people, meaning we all who've done this for a couple of weekends recognize how it works. But imagine reading all the stuff the authorities have about you, or may have or may not have discovered in your car, and going to your sister. And your sister said, "Let me read the receipt." What did they find? And you either say no or here. My question is in the dynamics of a victimology of Nancy Guthrie. Are they fighting? Are they arguing with each other about why was your car impounded for 40 days?
Well, you'll notice that there haven't been any family gatherings since the initial several at the outset of the event. One would think at the 6-month anniversary, the family would gather to make a public appeal. But I'm aware that the only person who has made that public appeal is, of course, Savannah. I'm not going to draw any pejorative conclusions from that, but I do find it a little peculiar.
Which leads us into the key language in the note, which is noise. She is safe but scared. Her life is in your hands.
Well, duh.
Do not play
Safe but
games.
scared.
And this is a shift all towards, unfortunately, Savannah. In these notes are not, the first one is not focused on anybody but Savannah. And he talks about, or this person, white smartwatch, white floodlight. And the full text was later released publicly by the authorities. And the investigators treated the notes seriously, but their authenticity was never confirmed, and it has not been confirmed during the first 48 hours of this investigation.
And if they were genuine, Chris, you don't send them to a local media outlet. If they were genuine demand notes, ransom demand notes, you send them to the family.
Definitely odd.
Again, chaff. I think that this is just stuff thrown in the air to confuse the issue.
And number two then shifted to the Guthrie family. But what are we left with? Number one, we have a 14-hour gap. Within the first 48, this gap is huge. She was last home at 9:50, not reported missing until after midday the following day. That's a long time. The next thing that we take away is whoever has done this, they came prepared. I would submit to you, they know the neighborhood. They had a cross-reference of some sort with Nancy Guthrie's home and Nancy Guthrie. At some point, because of the victim risk continuum, she is a very low risk victim. So that means something, whoever this person is, crossed paths with Nancy Guthrie in the past. Somewhere in the circle is this suspect. And this suspect knew that. So they concealed their identity. This suspect knew that neighborhood because when you drive into that neighborhood, you would not know where Nancy Guthrie's home was unless you knew her address and that house. That neighborhood, and I've said this a couple of times, was described to me initially as a bowl of spaghetti just dumped upside down. Until I went there and physically drove into Nancy's neighborhood and in front of her house, I would have gotten lost if I didn't have her address or a GPS to take me in there. That's how screwed up it is.
Well, it is a situation. I've actually worked in the desert with streets laid out like this, and it's as dark as the inside of a cow. So unless you know exactly where you're going, you're not going to find that house at random. So they're either using GPS or there had been several practice runs. Because like I said, I've actually driven cars on night shifts in neighborhoods like this, and it's easy to get lost, even with a map book, because I'm old school, but working the beat for several months. It's just very complicated roadway system.
And this Uber driver, I agree with you right now, is a little quiet. It won't be long. It won't be long. That person will talk, whoever that person is. And Karen mentioned this a couple of months ago about Kathy being told, don't say anything. Her friend and others. But number two, going back there, is the camera was disconnected before the motion alert. How did that happen? Minutia details. The figure recorded wore a mask and gloves. Why? Identity, known, perhaps seen in the past, perhaps closer than we think. We don't know. Number three, nothing was confirmed to date, and even today, and within the first 48 hours. No suspect, no location of Miss Nancy, and a ransom note whose authenticity still today, 6.5 months later, approximately, they still remain unverified. Where does it go from here? The case moved from a missing person search to a criminal investigation, and we don't know where it stands currently beyond the window that we keep talking about. I will tell you this. Don't be surprised if we start seeing movement back towards the home. Don't be surprised if people start being re-interviewed again with lawyers.
Oh, yeah.
With lawyers, which is a good thing because you don't need a lawyer if you've already given a statement. And second statements with lawyers become really good evidence. Really good evidence. Because if this guy is caught, and I'm of the opinion there is more than one, I think this guy is just one of maybe two, perhaps three. I like Dr. Gary's analysis of waiters and a chef. Whoever the chef is, whoever that person is, you'd better get to the kitchen first. Because I think things are going to slow down. And if I was the investigative team, well, let me tell you a quick story. John and I were in San Diego recently for a funeral of a friend of ours. And we all went out to dinner to Joyce's favorite restaurant, John's wife who passed away. She loved this little Chinese place. And we went and we hung out there and we chatted it up. And one of my old partners was sitting across from us, Danny Aarons. And Danny, if you're listening, we're giving you another shout out. And we were just telling war stories. And he goes, do you remember the case we had where we had a Budweiser can? And I said, yeah. Because one of the suspects' partners screamed at me one day when I was at dinner with Karen at a restaurant in Hillcrest, San Diego. It's a great little restaurant called Ichiban. And the suspect's partner, who was now in prison, came walking by and recognized me as one of the people that put him in prison for homicide, just went ballistic and screamed at me. And Karen, poor Karen's sitting there going, oh my gosh. And he goes, do you remember? It was about a Budweiser can. I said, I do. What we were able to do was take the lot number on a can we found on a boat. And two guys, the old fishing story, two guys went out fishing and one came back. Well, that was this story. Fast forward. We were able to trace that Budweiser can to a store at a dock where we get video of the suspect buying that Budweiser can. And then that same video shows him in a dinghy going over and picking up our victim at a dock across the harbor on a Budweiser can. Where am I going? That backpack is much bigger than a Budweiser can. You better hope, because time is running out, they don't get you at the point of purchase. For every Ozark backpack that's purchased at the 3 Walmarts within 4 miles of Nancy Guthrie's home. Because you can bet Walmart security is working with the FBI to narrow that scope down. And when they get you at the point of purchase, game time. Because then they're going to sit on you and they're going to watch you. Just like Brian Koberger. And you're going to be paranoid that they're coming. Just like you are now, probably watching tonight. And that's exactly where you should be. Paranoid that somebody's going to snitch or rat you out or recognize your backpack from that video of you purchasing it. Did you notice new video just came out of Brian Koberger buying stuff? That's going to be you. So if I were you, I'd get ahead of the game as quickly as possible. If I were you, that's what I would do. You froze up for a second, John. I had to refresh you.
Yeah, and it also affected my brain simultaneously. So, thank you. You're right, Chris. I would just suggest if our porch guy, the Michelin Man, is watching, there is a grim but absolutely undeniable truth about homicide investigations. When there's more than one person involved, it is incumbent, it is suggested that whoever cuts the first deal is the one that gets the best deal. And I'm not trying to be intimidating. I'm not trying to be menacing. It's just simply a fact of life, man. I mean, I've been working homicide since 1984. Somebody at some point is going to give you up, and at that point, all deals are off, and you will be portrayed as the chef. So, I mean, look, I don't have any dogs in the fight with you. Whatever happens, happens. But you need to be thinking, not right now. Think a year from now. Think 2 years from now. Think about where you would rather be. You want to be in? Do you want to be in maximum security prison, or do you want to cut a deal and go to a minimum security prison? Just something to think about. But somebody is going to give you up, or this is going to unravel. And when it happens, this is going to be like rats abandoning a sinking ship. Don't be the last rat.
Well said. Well, everybody, you guys are amazing. Get John's book, Bring Out Your Dead, an amazing read, available on Amazon, and you won't regret it. Continue to pray for those folks in Hawaii who just got hit with a hammer storm. Let's keep them in our prayers and our thoughts. John, you have a great time in Nashville coming up.
It's going to be in Franklin and at the I don't know, the Hilton there, and I'll be on some author panels, and and I'm locked up again.
Yeah, that's all right. You can go meet John up there in Nashville, one-on-one with him.
If you see me, you can approach me. It's not like I'm going to look down my nose and go, act like some big time author, because believe me, I'm not. I'm just a regular guy. Chris, I want to thank you for having me on. I want to thank Karen, the mods, And I want to say, God bless Nancy Guthrie, wherever she is.
Yeah. Thank you so much for participating tonight, Johnny. I really appreciate you. Thanks
Thank
for coming.
you.
All right. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this evening's program. Meatloaf kind of threw us a curveball, but you know, our pups, we gotta love them. And Karen's out there still playing with him, so that's what's important. Family first, God first. God first, family, and then all the other stuff will fall into place, whatever that means. So thanks again to all of our mods. Thank you so much, by the way, for also hitting us over 300,000. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate each and every one of you for your time, and you trust us here on this channel. We got a great show coming up on Wednesday night. I've got Seth coming here who is Sebastian Rogers' father. We're going to be meeting with him Wednesday night at 6:00. I'm going to try to get another program in this early week here on some things that I've been working on. So until then, let's continue to take care of each other and continue to do the right things. Be akamai, pay attention to what's around you, and thank you to all of our first responders, our law enforcement folks. When I say first responders, doctors, nurses, cops, firemen, everybody, including lifeguards, by the way. I saw a good friend of mine who's a lieutenant in the lifeguards, Blake Falmina. We love you, buddy. If you're ever in Oceanside, California, Blake is in charge of lifeguards down there. They just did an amazing boat rescue. They need to be recognized as well as first responders. And of course, our military. Thank you, folks, for doing what you do, and your families for giving us the freedoms that we enjoy here and allowing us to have this show. Without you, we are absolutely nothing. So God bless each and every one of you, and we will see you on the next one.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts. Wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah. Make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away. You and me go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away. Yeah, we're going away. You and me. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii.
I'm always gonna lift you up. I'm always gonna fill your cup. I'm always gonna be there for you. I'll always show support. I'll always open your door. I'll always make time for you. Always, always, always for you. I'll always make you laugh. I'll always check your math. I'll always look out for you. I'm always gonna take the heat. I'm always gonna save you a seat. I'm always gonna keep it real with you. Always, 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 oh. Always means all the days. Even if things feel sideways. Thick or thin, it's not pretend. Got your back until the end. Even when the tide comes in and you're too tired, I can swim. I'm always gonna bake you bread. I'm always gonna keep you fed. I'm always gonna take care of you. I'll always be your biggest fan. I'll always lend you a hand. I'll always show up for you. Always, 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 in every way, I will love you.
It's always been you, Jesus. It's always been you, Emmanuel. Who gave me this courage? What torch lights my feet? It's always been you, Jesus. It's always been you, Emmanuel. Who brings light to the morning? What flame lights my way home? It's always been you, Jesus. It's always been you, Emmanuel. I know I am love's son. Now I remember to see bright. It's always been you, Jesus. It's always been you, Emmanuel. fall.